you? Today is Monday, the 3rd of August, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. Now, last week we spoke about going international, how an advisory board can help you to propel your company to international markets, and which are the gaps, which are the threats, which are the opportunities, and how an advisory board can help you with all that. Now, this particular week, I would like to go into a practical side of a tension that appears in many founder-led businesses, right? So you are a founder, or you have an executive team, or you're a board already, and this is a problem that constantly happens, and I wanted to address it this week. So the problem is this. You might believe that a company is ready. Ready to what? What I mean with ready is that it's ready to grow, ready to raise capital, ready to enter another market, as we discussed last week, ready to recruit senior people, ready to sign the larger partnership. And what happens often, the founder has good reasons for feeling confident, right? So you have all what you know, unfortunately or fortunately, is in your head. So that you know the product works. You know the customer have a very good, healthy payment cycle. The revenue has moved, so it's increasing. The market is showing interest. The team has achieved a lot of within a limited resources, right? So this is a real belief. It's not a fantasy, but the belief is not the same as a board proof. And what I mean the board proof is so how you handle this challenge. Because one thing is to say, yeah, we know we can do it. Then you have to put it on paper with evidence. And this is with an advisory operating system that you can do that. Here's on the screen, we already have the operating model. So the center of the model is the advisory board operating system. And around it, you have the 4 milestones to how to scale, how to predict, how your system should operate, and what is the innovation, the transformation they're looking for. So what I'm trying to say with this is I'm going to use those 4 milestones to build a 90-day board action plan, right? So if you see this model, you will say, this is too complicated. This is too much to do. Not really, because you have a 90-day action plan that I'm going to show you. I'm going to develop throughout this week, but today I'm going to show you how it looks like. So this is not a long strategy document. This is not another presentation, but a working plan that tells the board what needs providing, who owns the proof, and what must be happen next, right? So you have all laid out. So what are the problems that we're going to address? Problem number 1 is that the market interest gets mistaken for readiness, right? So even if you know that it's a market interest, it doesn't mean that your company is ready. Yeah, you have the good signals outside, but is your company ready for that? So things that might come your way would be a customer asking question does not prove the company can scale, right? So if they say, oh, we have all these other projects, can you deliver? It doesn't mean that the company is ready to deliver that. Or a partner channel, the ecosystem offering access to certain other tenders or new product, new connections, new suppliers or services that you can provide, doesn't prove that the partnership will protect the margins or the customer ownership or the control of what you are delivering, right? So they might start to suck all the resources, time, and products or services to a very expensive exercise rather than making the company grow. And here, this is typical with the large change of supermarkets, where pretty much dictate the revenue to the company. So you exclusively manufacture for a particular chain of supermarket and pretty much dictate how much you have to earn. And many of these are very aggressive, and they document that say your profit margin is 3%. So let's assume that you, for whichever reason, you go and make a 5% profit margin because you optimize, you updated your system, you optimize the processes, you employed AI for whichever reason that make things much faster, and you gain another 2% margin. Guess what happened? Contractually, you cannot have this 2% extra margin. You think that is for you? No, unfortunately, no. That chain will take that margin from you, because actually the agreement is that you're going to get only 3% margin. All the rest goes to the buyer. Harsh to hear, but it's a reality, and this is a big problem that many companies are facing. And they are trapped because that's their business now. They have one, they supply only to one big chain, but the margins are dictated. So an investor taking a meeting does not prove that the business is fundable, because if they see this contract, they say, well, unfortunately, this is not for us. So this interest tells you somebody is curious, but not necessarily that actually are going to do business with you. So the proof tells you the operating model can carry the opportunity or not. The problem number two is that the founder's confidence hides a missing evidence. So you as a founder knows the history. You understands the product. You knows why the customer buys. You hold all the relationships. I can explain all the awkward gaps that might happen, right? You have that capability, but the market does not invest inside your head, unfortunately. And you say, well, it's too pessimistic. When I say, no, this is a reality that many founders or many companies face. And say, you know better than actually you can prove, and that is a challenge. So the board needs evidence that other people can understand, test, and trust. And problem number three is that the evidence arrives without the working rhythm, meaning that actually that is not scheduled, it's not the workflow, it's not the process, it's not something that's repeatable. So one advisor talks about growth, and you listen to that and you try to do it, but then I have another advisor that talks about funding and how to prepare for funding. So you leave what you're doing here or do it to look into the funding side. And you might have another advisor, or listening to another people that say it's about the legal structure. And then you stop halfway growth, halfway funding, and now halfway legal structure. And other talk about risk, other talk about technology. So you are halfway in everything, so it doesn't have a rhythm that actually produce something at the full capacity. So it doesn't mean the advice is not sensible or is bad, but the business does not know what comes first, and this is a big problem. So that is how a good advice becomes another source of noise. Unfortunately, you have a lot of noise, but not really in reality how you execute that. And looks like this. I have a small image for you. It's like having a bridge. Yeah, you are building a bridge, or you have in your mind a bridge, and know exactly where it should lead and where it should land and where it should go, right? Which are the gaps that you're covering, which are the 2 points that need to be connected. The board job is not to argue about whether the destination looks attractive or not, because you have that. The board job is to test whether the bridge will carry the weight, right? So can this bridge make possible for your company to go that way, right? So as a board advisor, what I would propose is to consider is the following. Start with a 190-day plan built around the 4 advisory board operating system milestone, which is our model that is here. And let me explain this. On top, we have scaling, which is the commercial acceleration. Ask whether the brand, the people, and the partnerships can carry that growth, right? So this is your first step. The second, this can offer what? To understand without you explaining everything. So anybody can understand which is your brand, what do people do, and what are the partnerships doing. So do the people have the clear ownership? That's the other point. Do partnerships improve access, margin, credibility, and control without you being behind the partners all the time? So that's your commercial acceleration. Number 2 is predictability. And here you have asked, or you should ask, whether the partnerships, the revenues, and the assets create a case that capital can trust, right? So is the revenue repeatable? Are the margins clear? Remember the margins? So if you increase your margins, or those margins stay with you and not go somewhere else because it's committed to a different contract. Does the cash arrive when it's expected? Can the board prove where the assets, contracts, data, and intellectual property sits, right? So all these things are part of the predictability of your business. At the bottom, you have your systems, and this is your workflow, your operation procedures. Your It's not just IT, hardware, and software. So this is a governance, risk, and compliance, and the performance of the company that can hold under pressure. And when you see performances, it's not a KPI. Performances is the company doing what it's supposed to do at the time they're supposed to do and deliver. So are the legal and operating structure clear? Are the material risk owned? Are the controls evidence? Does the reporting show the truth or the truth quickly enough to guide a decision, right? So you have to make decisions. So do you have the reporting that shows and supports those decisions? And on the far left, you have the edge, your innovation, your transformation. And here you ask whether the performances, your strategies, and brands create an advantage that survives without you as a founder or your current executive team. And this might sound harsh to listen, but actually this is the, let's say, the one of the big goals that you should have in your organization. So if everything's still depending on you, you'll have a very nice job. You are not an entrepreneur. You are not somebody that can detach yourself from the company and the company still evolve. So here you will ask questions like what makes the company different, right? What does that difference create value? What makes the company still relevant for the next 6 months, next year, 3 years? What proves shows the advantage is real, right? What still depends too much on one person, or for example, yourself as a founder, these dependencies on certain people in your organization, certain partners, or certain contracts that pretty much trap the company in a vicious circle. And a vicious circle is not a bad way. I mean, actually, you cannot get out of there because actually pretty much you are 100% or 90% committed to one contract, and all depends on that. And how you start to diversify from that risk, if you may, is very hard. Now, let's turn those questions into a 30, 60, and 90 days plan. And I have a little design here for you to show you. It's on the screen already, and this is a plan. During the first 30 days, diagnose, right? You have to diagnose, gather the evidence, name the assumptions, find those gaps. So during the following 30 days is a second section in the middle. Clean the biggest risk, clarify ownership, fix the weak documents, strengthen the number, tighten the controls. And on the right-hand side, on the last 30 days, which is day from 60 to 90, turn the work into something that the market can test. A board pack, a funding case, a market entry plan, a partnership case, a due diligence rooms, you name it. But there you start to get the market, you can go to market with something different. Now, here's a big thing. The sequence matters. So if it sounds like the company has ambition, but the proof is still scattered, you have a problem. So if also see everyone wants progress, but nobody owns the full route, you have a problem. So if you as a founder or your executive team is being asked to slow down when the real need is to build evidence faster, then you have a problem because you're not slowing down, you're building evidence, and you have to keep it at the pace of the business. So that is the role of the advisory board. So you don't have to do it all yourself. This is absolutely fantastic news. So it doesn't kill your ambition. It gives you a founder, yourself, an ambition to your ambition, a structure that the board, investor, partners, and leadership teams can trust. This is the main function of the advisory board, is to free you from all these things, to give us another view on how to make your company more attractive, and prove what is in your head, in your mind, in your ideas, your vision, in the real world. So, what do you gain working with me? 3 things: business outcomes, differentiators, and risk reductions. In terms of business outcomes, is this: a 90-day operating plan that moves the company from your belief to a board proof that can go and be tested in the market in the real world. The differentiator is a rotating international advisory board that's built around the milestones in front of the company. Remember, you have 4 big milestones: your scaling, your predictability, your systems, and your age, your innovation, your transformation. So you get specialist judgment faster than hiring one executive, a lower overhead than the big consulting firm, and no talent, no team, because we can swap members every 6 months as the work changes, because things are evolving. So you don't need a talent log team. You don't need the group thinking anymore. You need people that actually are experts, have experience, and can deliver towards the milestone that you are addressing at that quarter, that semester, or that year. And the risk reduction is we avoid the drift, right? So remember that we said you have very good advisors in law, in accounting, in strategy, in branding, but all that contributes to a big noise because nothing is said, nothing is addressed or put together in a plan. So that's the drift, because you are pulled in every direction and where you exactly are going with the things that are in your mind and you want to put in the market. So the business stops chasing growth, capital, or market entry before the evidence, the controls, and the ownerships are ready. So one action you can take home today, and is doable in 30 minutes or less, is in the screen. Just do this 30, 60, 90 days visibility map, and that gives you a good idea where you're standing and where you will need to go in the coming quarter or the next 90 days. So I'll pause it here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow we move into specifically how to commercially accelerate your business, the scaling. We'll test whether the brand, the people, and partnerships are ready to carry growth, or whether the company is mistakenly mistaking market interest for a scalable operating model, right? Because sometimes you have all these inquiries, these potential tenders, etc., but is that a scalable operating model for you? And this is very important to understand. So if you have a company with more than 50 employees or more than 10 million in revenue, and you want an international advisory board to turn this ambition into fundable, governed, and executable 90 days plan, let's have a chat so I can understand where you're coming from, where you are today, where you would like to go, and I will explain the offer on how the milestone process are processed and how to acquire all these things for your company and make possible all the things that you have in your mind. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you, and bye-bye.